If you use Grok, very powerful engine, it's great. If you use ChatGPT, it's very inexpensive. But whenever you get something very powerful for very little money, you should question, why am I being given this thing for free? Is it out of the goodness of their hearts? Is there some profit model? Well, most likely there is some purpose, some agenda in there. And in the case of AI, that agenda can be quite sinister.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
This is an audio recording of an X Space courtesy of thecoinrepublic.com, the go-to place where you can keep up to date with what's happening in the crypto space. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Thank you to the Coin Republic, thecoinrepublic.com, for hosting this. And I recommend you go check out their website to keep up to date with what's happening in the crypto world. And before I introduce my fabulous guest, I just want to say that don't take anything that I say on this space or any other, I don't know, internet thing that you listen to as investment advice. None of this is investment advice. Do your own due diligence, check everything out, okay? We're just sharing news and information and occasionally our opinions. All right. Lisa, thank you so much for making yourself available. You are
Hello,
the CEO
yes.
of Secret Network Foundation, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. And you have been on my channel a few times. And full disclosure, I have been holding Secret tokens, SCRT, since 2018. And I've featured Secret Network on my channel a few times. Not enough times, but there you go. All right, Lisa, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lisa Loud. I'm the executive director of the Secret Network Foundation. We are working to bring, it's hard to say the history and the present, but the history is we've been doing on-chain encryption since 2020. But at the end of last year, we pivoted into confidential AI infrastructure. And this is so important for the future of our world, our planet, and our race. Because without confidentiality, AI can become a very, very unpleasant tool for destruction. So I'm really passionate about that, but I loved the news items that you raised because in 2 days we have the next SEC roundtable, policy roundtable, and my colleague is going to that. I'm super excited about it, and I've just been thinking about all of these policy changes recently. So I'm hoping we're going to talk about that too. I'll just tell a little bit more about my background. I'm from the big tech space, worked at Apple and Oracle and then PayPal for many years. So I come from that Silicon Valley culture. I entered the crypto space in 2017, and I've been through quite a lot of the exciting times in the space. I've spent a lot of time on regulations, a lot of time thinking about regulations. I actually was working with Commissioner Hester Peirce to come up with a draft regulation set in case it was ever needed. And more recently, I've been really following the abolition of the crypto task force, not the crypto, whatever it's called, the team, the crypto enforcement team, that being abolished. Really, you said, Varuni, that the clarity of regulation is the most important thing for institutional adoption. And I think that's true. And while under Gary Gensler, the regulation by enforcement was far from ideal, taking that away it does raise some questions. Are we going to get clarity? We want regulation by thoughtful, proactive structure, not by enforcement, or random enforcement, I could even call it. But we don't want chaos. We don't want anarchy, because then no one knows what to do, and every action you take could be an action that lands you in jail. And speaking of jail, we're looking forward to Bitcoin Las Vegas, and I just learned that Ross Ulbricht is going to be speaking at Bitcoin Las Vegas. As you may probably know, he's been in jail for many years as a result of the Silk Road arrests. Yes. And he was free very recently.
Lisa, forgive me for interrupting you. There's so much that you said that I'm interested in that I want to pick into, right? But if you could just give a sort of broad overview about Secret, the
Sure.
blockchain, the crypto, and then we can get into. I'd love to talk to you about some of the news that you
Of
you
course.
touched.
Yes, I'm happy to talk about Secret. So Secret went to mainnet in 2020. We are part of the DCC Alliance, the Decentralized Confidential Computing Alliance. And there are 4 different technologies that you can use to have on-chain privacy or encryption. And we're not talking about privacy to do mixers or launder money. What we're talking about is actual data privacy and encrypted computations. So one of the problems with blockchain is that it's very difficult to do anything if you're not able to protect your data. So there are several technologies that allow you to protect data. The only one that's really practical in today's world and not just a pipe dream for the future is trusted execution environments. Trusted execution environments are essentially...
Hold on a second. Please forgive me, right? I want to break this down. You know Secret inside out. Of course you do, right? But I want to break it down so it's sort of accessible for people who are new to this, right? So if I can say a few things and then we'll go in. So one of the ways that I understand Secret, it's like Ethereum, but with privacy. So Bitcoin is just a currency. Monero is a privacy currency, a value exchange. You can't really write anything on Monero, but like you can create applications on Ethereum, you can create applications on Secret. And I think that's what you were referring to with the encrypted blockchain. And it's an open source protocol, part of the Cosmos ecosystem. So, you know, if people here are familiar with Osmosis DEX or some of the other ones that are part of the ecosystem, you'll be able to get Secret. And Secret has several DEXs as well that are part of its own ecosystem, allowing for Secret DeFi. The token is Secret, SCRT. And there's a Secret Foundation, there's Secret agents. You know, if people want to get involved, they can just go to the website, which is scrt.network, and get involved in the project and go to the Telegram group or follow them on X and, you know, find out that way and do your own due diligence that way.
Great summary. Thank you for that. That was great.
I do know a bit about it, having been involved with it since 2018, right? I think it's a really, really great project. Oh, and by the way, it's stakeable. So you can get your SCRT tokens and then you can stake them and earn interest in the form of more SCRT. And then you said earlier that you're now moving to private AI.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because we have the confidential infrastructure to run on-chain encryption, we have extended that to incorporate the NVIDIA H100 GPUs. And the reason that matters is that a trusted execution environment is fairly small. So while you can do smart contracts in there, you can hold data in there. When you talk about AI takes a lot more space. And training AI especially takes a lot of space. So the trusted execution environment that we've been running, as you mentioned, since 2020 on mainnet, we have applications, DEXs, interesting use cases, including peer-reviewed science papers, genetics, all of these things, that fits into Secret Network very nicely. But what didn't fit into that from a hardware and encryption perspective was AI. And so at the end of last year, we realized that there was an opportunity to combine the trusted execution environment with the larger GPU memory that came out from NVIDIA, and to create a larger walled garden in a way that allows you to actually do LLM training and to store AI models, not just tiny ones, but larger ones. So that's a very essential function in the world, and it's quite a difficult problem to solve. So we spent, last year solving that problem, and now we're rolling that out.
Okay, now I'm still stuck with the problem, right? I use Grok AI, I use OpenChat. Why does it need to be private? I don't understand. And what difference does Secret make?
Great question. So I like to use the example of a free search engine that allows you to search the internet completely for free. And what did we find out when Google grew? We found out that Google was not a search engine company. It was a data mining company, and they monetized the data. We essentially were the product, not the data, not the customer. And what we're looking at with AI is a similar thing. If you use Grok, very powerful engine, it's great. If you use ChatGPT, it's very inexpensive. But whenever you get something very powerful for very little money, you should question, why am I being given this thing for free? Is it out of the goodness of their hearts? Is there some profit model? Well, most likely there is some purpose, some agenda in there. And in the case of AI, that agenda can be quite sinister. You get the use of free AI models, but in return, you're giving it a lot of context data. You're training the model. Example, let's say you decide you want to have an agent that you're going to train to be your therapist. Now you're going to give it all your private information, your history. That's more than a search engine would ever get. A search engine just gets what you're looking for right in this moment, and that turned out to be insidious. Imagine if now you're giving your entire life story to someone for free, and that someone happens to be the large enterprise behind the LLM, behind the AI model. And it gets worse. What if you decide this agent is going to run your whole life? It's going to have access to your credit cards. It's going to have your passwords. It can go out and do everything in the world for you. It can book hotels for you, book your flights. It has a lot of power. It has a lot of information about you. And now you've got a back door. So Secret closes that back door. Instead of having
So,
these,
Lisa, forgive me for interrupting you again, and I will probably do it again as well. Okay, just you. That's just incredible. I never thought of that. So if I type into Google or I don't know, one of the DuckDuckGo or something, and I say flights to, I don't know, Los Angeles, and then it comes up with that. But with an AI where I've got an account, even if it's a free account, I'm giving them lots of information over time, so they can actually create. Like I could ask Grok AI, look, this is when I was born, and the time I was born. Give me a Vedic astrology chart, and Grok would do that. I don't know how accurate it would be, but Grok's now got my date of birth
and your time of birth and location.
and my time of birth and location, right? And then I might ask him other stuff over time. I never ever thought of that. Never ever occurred to me that over time I become embedded within the AI infrastructure as a digital identity, a whole digital identity. Wow. Okay.
Yes,
Yes, I
exactly.
get it. You've answered my question fully. Thank you. So what
And
is
I
it
wonder,
you could do?
you,
Go on.
you raised a really good question, though. I wonder how many people are thinking about this right now. We learned our lesson a little bit with search engines, but can we apply that learning to the future and say, okay, we don't want this future where AI knows everything, absolutely everything about us and has all the power. But how do we prevent that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think? Do you think people are thinking about that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, I'm not using myself as an example. If any of those that want to, um, put a thumbs up if they have been thinking about this to the level that, as Lisa has distinguished, put a thumb up. Otherwise, we'd be like, no, I have no idea because I think it takes time for people to learn about these new technologies, to get
Mhm.
familiar with them. Even when someone comes into the crypto space and they get some Bitcoin, the mistake that they might make in the beginning, is Ethereum is the same as Bitcoin, Solana is the same as Bitcoin. But it takes time to acquire to modify the thinking, to tailor it, especially if we get comfortable with where we're already at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always convenience versus safety or security. Like it's so convenient for me to plop something into ChatGPT. But did you know if you have a patent and you are the owner of the patent, if you take all of the wording in that patent and you put it into ChatGPT to say, write me a summary of this, you've now given away the right to enforce your patent because now the ChatGPT, the license in there says that they now have free license to use all the data that you put in there. which goes against patent regulations. But as the owner, you shared that information. So now you can't enforce it.
Wow. And I suppose it would be the same if somebody said, I don't know, was writing a book or something and they wanted the book proofread. Or they wrote a song and they wanted the song, I don't know, kind of put to music or something. They wrote the lyrics and they wanted it put to music or adapted or something like that. Is it then the case that ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, DeepSeek, then own that input?
It doesn't own it, but it has a free use license for it.
Right.
Which means that if someone else asks a question that your book answers or your piece of work answers, it could take a paragraph out of your book and wholesale plop it into the answer to the prompt. And that person who got that could now use it because ChatGPT has the license to use that, has rights to use it, so it doesn't violate a copyright in that case.
Wow. Okay.
This is why people are creating their own local LLMs. I wrote an article about DeepSeek, and DeepSeek was a big deal when it came out because all of a sudden it was so inexpensive to do all these things. But if you use DeepSeek, the main version, you are definitely, there was a lot of uproar about how you're giving away your information. However, if you were to get the hardware to support it and download a local copy of DeepSeek, you isolate it from the internet and you train it yourself. Now you're not giving away the information except to your own LLM. And but how many people can train their own model?
Yeah. Or even know that option is available.
Yeah.
I didn't. And then training my own model, forget about it. How would I do that?
Right.
So then obviously what we need is some sort of solution that enforces our privacy, the individual's privacy, and preserves their data. I wonder if there's anything like that out there.
Well, Secret Network provides the infrastructure. What we do is very foundational. It's at the infrastructure level. We are building Secret VM, Secret AI, and that we're partnering with other companies that are building agents. Autonomous, I think, is, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about that.
Yes, you are.
What they're doing. No, I don't know if they've released the news yet.
Okay.
Let me just ask Anubis. He's put a thumbs up, Anubis, if I'm allowed to talk about the autonomous project with Secret yet. All right, no thumbs up. So there are companies that are building agents with Secret as the back end, and those agents now are not vulnerable to. They're contained within a private LLM space, and so that there's no backdoor. Let's say you create a trading agent. Well, if you're going to make an agent that takes funds and your funds even and trades them for you, you want to make sure that there's nobody on the other side who's going to be able to get access to your agent and drain those funds out of the agent. Right? That's a very basic example, but that could be done if you don't build it right. So what we're trying to do is get the word out that if you're building agents, and we're working with Eliza, that one is already published. So we've just released an agent with Eliza that has these features where it's contained, it's verifiably private, and there's an attestation that shows that there's no one on the other side manipulating the agent. It's fully self-contained and independent. No one has access to make the agent do something. So that's one big step, is getting this confidential AI infrastructure integrated into all of the AI that is being built out there.
Okay. So wait a minute. So Secret Network have created a trading agent called Eliza, which is verified.
Eliza is the platform that works with AI 16Z. It's gotten a lot of attention because it created Twitter agents or X agents that post on their own. Nobody's telling them what to post, so they gained a lot of attention and notoriety. And we just recently released an agent on the Eliza platform that has confidential AI features.
I got it. And okay, and this will this allows for creating trading agents which are verified. You can verify that there's no one else on the other side. No one has got the data. So I take it they're open source in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
trading agents or agents that do anything really.
Right. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. So Lisa, forgive me. I'm a little bit dumbfounded and gobsmacked. Gobsmacked is an English expression. I don't know if that's in the American vernacular or even in the
Yeah.
Indian vernacular, because the Coin Republic are based out of India. All right. So
I think we read it in Harry Potter, so I think we in
okay. So you
American know all
all right.
about the
Yeah.
Gobsmacked.
I'm a bit like bloody hell. All right. So then, how does Secret Network keep this data private and owned by the person who's using it?
Well, that's a pretty technical question. I know you don't want to dive into all the details, but there's something called a virtual machine. So when you run a server, that
Yep.
server is controlled by a virtual machine, and there's usually an administrator for the virtual machine. The big weakness in our distributed cloud computing system is that these administrators, network administrators, can see everything that goes in and out. So we don't talk about it very much.
Administrators, are they human or is it
Yeah.
part of the computer program?
Usually it's a human. A
Okay.
network administrator is a human. Well, I mean, a network administrator is a human who administers the virtual machine.
Right. Understood.
So there's these humans, right, in the world who are running networks. We call them IT people, or we call them network admins. They have an incredible amount of access because they have to fix things when they get broken. And
Yes.
when you need to fix things, you need to see what's going on. So these network administrators are kind of a hidden vulnerability throughout all of tech, all of our networking. If they're good actors, that's fine, and they're supposed to be good actors. But if you have a bad actor in a position like that, they can spy, they can listen to all of the traffic that's going on. They can read the log files and find out what someone did. And that information, it's kind of a vulnerable area in the end-to-end networking world. So well, I'm sure that people don't think about this vulnerability, but even if you have a Wi-Fi at home,
Yeah.
have you ever thought about your internet service provider and how much they could know about you from all the traffic that goes back and forth from your computer?
Yeah. Yes. No, I've never thought about it, but I get it. And when I don't turn my VPN on, for sure.
Yeah.
And then something else from what you were saying, Lisa. So I work part-time as a child protection social worker, and I use a particular database which stores information on the children and the families that I'm working with, and then I have a local authority laptop which has all sorts of security protections. But if there's any problems, I go to the IT guys who are able to do all sorts of magic and make it all work properly.
Right. Right.
Now, if they're honourable people, not an issue.
Right.
But the vulnerability, I get what you're saying, is
Exactly.
that they are a vulnerability, and then that's okay. I mean, it's not great anywhere, right? But for financial companies, moving large sums of money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's state secrets, or the defense departments, or diplomatic secrets, or commercial secrets. That can be a major issue.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, for government, there's a completely different standard where there's classified information. You have to be given access to be able to do that. But in regular industry, we don't have those classified categories. So it is quite a big vulnerability. So coming back to the question you asked, which was, what was the question exactly?
How does Secret Network
Oh, yes,
resolve
right.
this issue, right? And by the way, your explanation is very, very clear, not at all too
Oh, good.
technical.
Okay. I can get sucked in sometimes to my own thoughts. But
Yes.
but so you have this vulnerability if you use Secret's confidential AI infrastructure, that VM, that virtual machine, is completely encrypted. The network administrator, even if they read the log file, even if they listen to all the traffic, it's encrypted, so they can't make heads or tails of it. So instead of having clear text and data streaming through, it's now encrypted and no one can listen to it. No one can look at it. And yes, if you're thinking that must make maintenance a little harder, like if your database was completely encrypted and your IT person wasn't able to tell what was going on, didn't have a key, it might be more difficult for them to do wonderful things, which is always the trade-off. But the good thing is that by default, I mean, you might give him access or her access to the database in order to fix a problem, but you would be giving that access rather than in the current world. Most things are by default unencrypted, and so most things are by default vulnerable to being listened to.
Right. Okay. And
So
then
with secret, we lock that all together, and
yeah.
there is no human that can read it unless they have the key.
And then it's up to the owner of that
Yes.
platform to give the key, and then they know who they've given the key to, when they've given
Oh,
it.
no, not the platform. I just want to correct
Right.
that. The owner of the platform also doesn't have the key. Only the owner of the data has the key.
So how would that work with an AI system?
Well, let's say I am training an agent for my own purposes. Let's say I'm making a travel agent. I have the key to that agent. I am able to get my data out of the agent, but anyone else trying to talk, the network that runs, the server that runs that agent, the VM that is managing that agent, none of them have access into the agent's thoughts or data. I, as the agent owner, as the data owner who put that, even if someone else created that agent for me, there's a platform that created that agent for me. They created a confidential agent that only I have the key to get the data out of, the prompts out of, the answers out of. Only I have it.
Okay. How does the AI then accumulate all the data to then be used? So if, for example, I want a Vedic astrology chart for the next month, and I put in my date of birth and my time of birth and place of birth using the secret technology, where does, what happens there that somebody else can't come in? But also, how does if we all did that, how will the AI accumulate information to give
Well,
us accurate?
it's like a one-way pipeline. So the agent can get data from the web. There's a lot of public data out there.
Right.
So it can gather information. There's public databases in the future. If we don't have an unencrypted World Wide Web or internet, then there will be sources of data. Um, and like just to take that one step further, you could sell your data to a public source. You could say, this data here, I want to share it, but I'm going to get compensated for it. Whereas right now, it's all your data is being stolen from you. But we're very far from that. So in today's world, there's a ton of public data available online, through public databases, everywhere. So that AI agent can go ingest all of that information, not a problem. Ingesting information is not difficult. But when you put your information in to that AI agent, as well as all of this public information, nothing can come out except with your key.
Got it. Okay, so then you wouldn't be able to read my what the stars foretell for me in the month of May unless I gave you the key.
Yeah, unless you, well, yes, or unless someone had the information that of your date of birth and could find it somewhere else and make their own agent.
Yes. Okay, all right. And then I know Secret Network uses this what's called a TEE, Trusted Encryption Environment. And the way I understand it, and without getting too technical, those old cameras with the old black and white cameras, and then what happens is that the photographer would put a cloth over their head, and then they'd do something in the camera, and the photo would get taken. Those really, really big ones, the black and white cameras, right? So there's some encryption that happens inside of this box with the information going in, the information going out. Is that a simple enough metaphor for the TEE?
Yeah, I think that's a good metaphor because the light comes into the camera and something strange, something mysterious happens inside the camera, and then the photo is or the negative is imprinted and you get a result. So I see where you're going with that. It's very
Okay.
similar. The TEE is this black box where Mysterious things happen and a result comes out.
Right. Lisa, if you like my metaphor, it's open source. Feel free to use it. Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So then that's where Secret Network is. It's pivoted towards working with AI. And then what's happening in terms of partnerships with blockchain companies and non-blockchain companies?
Yeah, well, um, on the non-blockchain side, we're really focusing on AI providers, whether they happen to be blockchain related or not. The decentralized AI is really a good hedge against a future where one entity has too much power.
Right.
Um, and then confidential decentralized AI is a good hedge against companies stealing your data and using it for nefarious purposes. On the blockchain side, we're still very actively nurturing projects that need to build on a confidential environment, and there's still nothing to equal secret. Um, there are quite a few other companies that are building on TEs. There's companies that are building blockchains on TEs. There are companies building confidential AI infrastructure on TEs, but um, at the moment, there's no project that is as mature as Secret since we came out in 2020, and we've had a lot of time to um, build our platform. So we're partnering with companies that don't have any other solutions. Basically, there's a few companies that are doing. Besides the AI side of things, there's companies that are doing peer-to-peer football betting, because the betting industry is very much slanted in favor of the house, and people, if even if people bet against, get odds or whatever, they get really taken advantage of. Most of the money goes to the house, whereas if you create a pure peer-to-peer system, then the profits go back to the people who are placing the bets. I know gambling is a controversial subject, though, so I'll also mention Mudo, which is a company that is building genetically specific supplements. So if they need confidential data, of course, because if you want to add your DNA information, your genetic information into a platform, you want to make sure no one else is going to be able to access that level of information about you. But once you input that, Mudo is able to create supplements that are specifically tailored for your genetic makeup, exactly what you're going to need to be your healthiest self. And that's a really interesting use case. We've long wanted to be more active in the health space because health data is so sensitive and
Yes.
you can do so much with it, but only if it's protected.
Yes. No, that is incredible. That is incredible with the health data, because there's, especially in the last few years, it's been rather a controversial topic, or rather something that's been talked about. It's been very topical,
Mhm.
on the vogue. Okay, all right. Look, we've got about 15 minutes left. I do want to pivot to what's happening in the terms of news and the background of, especially in the US. And there was something you mentioned earlier, the crypto, was it the task force under Biden?
Yes.
Yeah, and now my understanding is really what they were doing was suppress. It was a way of using regulatory procedures to stymie crypto innovation. Would that be accurate?
I think that was, I don't know if that was it could have been the intention, but I would say it more that they were using enforcement as regulation. So rather than creating any sort of rule, they just decided someone was in violation of something, even though there was no clarity on what you were supposed to do. They would just pick a company and go after them. And yes, I think the ultimate result was stymieing innovation, because everyone was so scared of doing anything in the US. You didn't know if Gary Gensler was going to go after you or not, if the SEC was going to go after you, and you didn't know what you could do to be in compliance. It wasn't like you could get a no action letter from the SEC. That was the best you could do, which is not worth much, but at least it shows good intention. It shows that what a no action letter is that You tell the SEC what you're doing and
Yeah.
ask them if they see any problem. They will not tell you. They would not tell you, oh, what you're doing is fine. They would just send you a letter saying that we're not planning to take any action against you right now. It really means nothing, but it at least shows good faith. And people were using that as the only way to do innovation in crypto in the US. You would get a no action letter. That was the big prize. Very funny, really, because it doesn't mean anything, but it was all we had. And at the same time, you didn't know what you could do and what you couldn't do. If you went over some line or you attracted attention some way, you would get an enforcement action. You would have potentially fines, potentially jail sentences, and this happened a lot. So with the abolishment of the enforcement team, crypto enforcement team, I think that's the wrong name, but it's something along those lines. There's an E in there. With the abolishment of that, some people are celebrating because they're like, oh, yay, we don't have to worry about the SEC coming after us now. But that's not really true. What is true is that you still have to wonder what the rules are. You don't know if you're doing things correctly or not, and you don't know what's coming in the future. I've had a lot of conversations with founders who are considering coming to the US with the new environment, but then saying, but we don't know what's going to happen. Like, there's actually no clarity. Europe, on the other hand, is much clearer. There are times when it's frustrating because it's a little more stringent and there's a lot of things you cannot do, but at least you have clarity. Whereas in the US, we just have chaos.
Yes. But hopefully the clarity will come, and we will come on to that. The thing about the no action letter is, I don't know, maybe this is my social work head. It's a little bit abusive because any other business. So, for example, if I'm going to set up a mechanic garage, it's really clear what I can and can't do. But if I set up a mechanic garage or set up any business, and then the regulator is saying, right now, we're not going to take any action, well, it doesn't allow me to build anything. There's no certainty.
Mm-hmm.
There's no direction. Can I do this? Can I not do that? At any point, They can come down. Yeah. So the net effect is to stymie innovation, but it also looks like they're not doing it,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I deal with. Human beings
Yeah.
stymieing others looking like they're not doing it.
That's a very interesting perspective that you bring. I love that.
Yes. I find it quite useful in my political analysis. Perhaps one day, Lisa, in another conversation, when you come on my channel, we can talk a little bit about that, maybe online or offline or whatever, right? They're all gangsters, by the way, all of them. They're all gangsters. The world is their turf, and we're just the ants watching the giants fight. Now, back to crypto, Lisa. So, what do we know about the new administration? What are the noises that they're making? What's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, so I mean, this week is better. On Friday, in 2 days, the SEC is doing their their third crypto policy roundtable, and they're focusing this time on custody issues, like what is it okay to do, what is it not okay to do, and just soliciting opinions from the community. Fluidify, my company, we registered for that, so my co-founder is going to. I have a company that does data and analytics in the blockchain space since 2020, and it's fully MiCA compliant. So I've been on the compliance train for quite some time, but we're providing some input to that. Okay. Just being compatible with MiCA ISO 27001.
Sorry, hold on a second, please, Lisa. So this is the third crypto policy roundtable since Trump came into power?
I think the other two were yes, since he came into power. Yep.
Wow. Well, he's not messing about. He's really looking at this. And then MiCA. What's MiCA?
MiCA is the European framework that for compliance and for how data is treated, how financial data is treated. And I would say that most crypto companies are not MiCA compliant, which is a huge problem in Europe because there's a lot of crypto companies in Europe, and now they're non-compliant. It's quite difficult to achieve MiCA compliance, and I think most of the blockchains are not MiCA compliant, frankly. So that raises another interesting question. How long are these blockchains going to survive in an environment where there's no KYC for using the blockchain? There's no oversight whatsoever. So it's a good question. I know I've heard people talking about moving towards compliance, moving towards identifying all the actors on the chain, because that's the only way that we can move into the future. Which, of course, there's the other side that thinks that's heresy. Decentralization and lack of government control is the holy grail for some people. Um, both sides have a good point, but we have to reach some sort of peace between regulators and anarchists in order to move the industry forward.
Do we have to, Lisa? Okay, so I'm going to say a few things, and you are at liberty, of course, to maintain neutrality over what I say, right? And this is my point of view, not coin republics, not secret networks or anything. So what the European Union is really, really great at is regulating. The European Union doesn't have an AI company, like a major AI company, but it wants to regulate them. They don't have any big social media platforms, but it wants to regulate them. Now they have all these cryptocurrency projects, but at the same time, in October, they plan to launch a CBDC. And I just wonder if MiCA compliance will then be used as a weapon to
Yeah.
suppress crypto innovation. Because there was something that came out of the EU the other day. I'm just looking for it. It was on Tom Luongo's Twitter, because he was a guest on this as well. So people who have listened to this before, and it is about the Europe. This is it. I found it. The European Central Bank warns that Trump's pro-crypto stance could trigger financial contagion that may destabilize Europe's economy, according to Politico. The ECB fears that a surge in US-backed stablecoins could lead to a flight of European capital into the US. That was a tweet by
That's
Coin.
interesting.
Yeah. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard that. I didn't know that October was bringing a European Union CBDC, so that's new information for me and very interesting. I don't know what's going on in the US, and there might be a flight of capital from Europe into the US. I think it's more likely that there will be a flight of capital into more friendly jurisdictions. While the US is very friendly towards crypto today at the moment, it's not clear where that's going. I don't know, and most of the people that I talk to don't know as well, and people are hesitant to commit,
Yes.
to putting their money here. Or I'm in Canada right now, but putting their money into the US because anything could happen. So
Yes.
without any further context, I would say more likely that people will move their capital somewhere else that's more friendly.
Yeah, and I think you may be talking about crypto capital versus the larger capital, which is what I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
Which and there is a drain of capital,
Hmm.
and it has been for some time from the European Union into the United States, partly because of fears of the war in Ukraine, Russia, so the gold leaving the European Union and the UK as well, going into uh, the United States, the Dow Jones as a safety refuge, a safety harbor for capital, partly because interest rates in the United States are higher than they are in the European Union, and also because the European Union is broke. It's defunct. It has no way of generating money anymore, really. And then there's crypto capital,
Hmm.
which I imagine is going to move to places like El Salvador or Dubai and
Hmm.
other friendly jurisdictions that welcome crypto innovation.
Yes, you're right. That is what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, this guy, Paul Atkins, as the new SEC chair, do you have a take on him? What his stance might be?
I don't. I'm hoping to know more after Friday's event. I just feel like that will give us some context. Watching how the questions are asked,
Now,
how the conversation goes. It seems like it's still a little unknown for me. And I did hear Rooney talk about his former experience under Bush. So it seems like at least he's an adult, which is great.
yes.
But it remains to be seen really how this will play out.
Right. Okay. All right. And then anything you want to say in terms of your read on the situation in the United States, given that we have Trump coin, Melania coin, JD Vance has Bitcoin, RFK has Bitcoin, Elon Musk and Tesla have Bitcoin,
And
and
Dogecoin.
the talk, and Dogecoin, I'm sure, and perhaps a few others. And then there's the talk of the strategic reserve.
Hmm.
I think 30 plus states, maybe it's less, are looking at creating their own strategic reserves of Bitcoin.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a circus. There's some, I think there's some good things that have happened, but there's disappointment in the market because things that, the market, financial markets have been very poorly affected, and that affects people's real lives. Like their retirements have dipped by 30% in some cases, and um, you can look at idealism and aspirations all you want, but when it comes right down to it, you're mostly looking at what you've got saved up against a rainy day. That's probably more important to most people than anything else. And I do think the election was mostly run on along economic lines and expectations more than idealistic expectations. And we haven't seen that turn out to be as rosy as promised. So there's a lot of unrest, a lot of uncertainty.
Yes.
And in Canada, the, the border has shut down, almost completely shut down. Went across the border a couple weeks ago, and I was the only car going across the border. And the US border guard said to me, "Good luck," which they usually say, "Have a nice day." It was weird. So there's tensions. There's quite a few tensions.
There is tensions and there is disruption. Definitely
Mhm.
say that, right? And anything. Okay, thank you so much, right? And I'm sorry if it seemed like I was taking you onto turf where you don't normally venture.
No, it's very interesting, and I learned a lot from
Well, you
some of
should,
your comments too.
well, Lisa, you should definitely subscribe to my channel, and you should spend all your time listening to videos that I repeat
I will.
macroeconomic politics. Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything you want to say before we finish up, Lisa?
Think about your data. Think about who you're sharing it with. Make sure to envision the future and read up on the consequences of convenience. The consequences of convenience. That's a great way to finish. I'll leave it
Yes.
at that.
Yes. Lisa, thank you so much. I so appreciate this. And just so you know, this space will go out hopefully on the TCR website, and also it'll go out on my channels. And I look forward to having you back on my channel at some point. Please feel free to invite yourself on. And for anybody who's listening, please, please, please go check out Secret Network. Follow them on X. Go check out their Telegram group. It's a really, really great project, in my
And
opinion.
follow me on X as well. Lisa is loud.
Yes, yes. Lisa is loud in a sort of very quiet, dignified, secretive manner. All right. Lisa,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the Coin Republic. All the best. Bye-bye.